Hello, welcome to installment number 2 of Fear of a Libertarian Planet. This is a show brought to you by the Montana Libertarian Party. My name is Wyatt Vaught. I am the chairman of the Montana Libertarian Party. First, a little bit about the show. The title is a little bit confusing to some people. Libertarianism is kind of it's not exactly new, but a lot of its principles are different to what many people are used to in politics. And of course, as with all things that involve change, there's a lot of fear oriented towards it. So the name is kind of like playing up to that. That a lot of people fear libertarianism for nothing more than the fact that it's new and different. So we hope to overcome that. So we're kind of like making fun of it. Let me tell you a little bit about the Libertarian Party. For those of you who don't know, Libertarians are neither liberal nor conservative. They're kind of a combination of the two, but without being in the center. A good, easy way to explain it is that we take the economics of conservatives, the free market, and we take the personal freedom rights of the liberal philosophy. So, for example, well, that'll get played out later in the show. But we have a quote that by Thomas Jefferson that kind of encompasses what the libertarian philosophy is. So if we could put that up on the screen. There we go. All right, I'm going to read this to you. It's by Thomas Jefferson. It says, "A wise and frugal government which shall restrain men from injuring one another, which shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. This is the sum of good government." That's by Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States. I think that's a great quote because that is exactly what we're all about. We're all about the government staying out of your life, both in the area of economics and in your own personal life. Basically, do whatever you want to do as long as you don't interfere with the rights of other people. So that's what we're about. The topic for today's show is guns and drugs. Yes, there have been 2 things that have been in the news as of late. First of all, the government has been cracking down on the right to bear arms that our citizens have enjoyed up until this point. The Brady Bill was recently passed, and now there are calls to even ban handguns. There's a poll that 45% of Americans want to ban the sale of all handguns. So that's definitely in the news. And thanks to our Surgeon General, Joyce Elders, we now have the issue of drug legalization, which is in the news, which is good. It's something that needs to be talked about and doesn't get a lot of play. Now, you'll hear a lot about these 2 things in the news as you scan the dial, but most people don't bring up the fact that the 2 are intertwined. In fact, for us as libertarians, they're almost exactly the same issue. The issue is, should the government be able to control your life when you're not doing anything that necessarily harms anybody? So let's talk about drugs first. We have some, oh, wait, one thing I forgot. I should have said this earlier. If you want more information on the Libertarian Party, we have some phone numbers for you to call. Can we put the address and the phone number? We will in just a minute, I promise. There we go. If you want to write the Libertarian Party, that's the address. The best thing to do is call that 800 number. That will get you a packet of information sent directly to you, and it will also, your address will be forwarded to us so that we can contact you. Or if you don't want to receive an email or be contacted by us, you can specify that, and that's perfectly okay. We will respect that. Also, if you want to contact the Libertarian Party in Montana, that's our post office box where our headquarters is in. And then you could also call myself or Mike, who is the Missoula County Chair. Okay, we can come back to me. All right, and if you call in, you get this neat little news magazine. And the feature story on this issue is the 4 members of the New Hampshire House of Representatives, which are in the Libertarian delegation. Yeah, they have a 2nd minority caucus. And we hope after next year that they will not, they're the only state that has libertarians elected in the House of Representatives, but we're hoping that that will not be the case after next year. Almost every state in the union is running some people for state legislature, including Montana, so it's very exciting. We're kind of broadly expanding our role in state government. So anyway, back to the drugs thing. We have some information. You often hear that I think the president and the drug czar have talked about what's gone on in Europe with the legalization, things that they've done there, and they'll say, oh, it's been this huge, horrible failure, and they're just clamoring to bring back more tough drug laws. Well, to be honest, it's not quite exactly the case. I just got this magazine in the mail. We're going to put it up on camera, too, over here. This is from the Drug Policy Institute, which is a very well-run kind of think tank. And all right, there, I can see it on the screen now. The countries that are shaded are countries that have recently enacted more liberal drug laws. See, Italy voted in 1993 to end penalties for drug possession, ending a zero-tolerance experiment. Okay, and then England and Spain. All of these little dots indicate cities that are moving towards liberal drug policies and have signed some sort of document towards that effect. And all over Europe, their success has been much better than what the president might have led you to believe. There have been some problems, like in England, where they're distributing free heroin. That caused some problems, but we don't advocate that, and I think it's pretty stupid. But in the Netherlands, they did legalize marijuana and hashish for private use. So if we have some statistics. That was done in the late 80s, and then there was a survey taken in 1987. There we go. You can kind of see that. In 1987, 5.5% of Dutch citizens smoked pot or hashish, or something like that. Now, if you listen to the people in the media today, they'll say, well, if we legalize drugs, the government will be endorsing it and the drug use would skyrocket. Okay, well, it's not exactly true. At the time, 0.2% of the people used heroin. Okay, that's important to remember. In 1990, after drugs had been legalized and they were sold mostly in coffee houses, 6% of the people smoked pot. That's only a 0.5% increase. It's not very much. But look at that. Look at heroin, 0.1%. Okay, that's cut in half. Heroin wasn't legal. What happened is the reverse of what's happening in this country. When drugs are legalized, people tend to use the safer, softer drugs. In this country, when we made drugs illegal, we had after a big crackdown in the 60s, drugs started getting more potent and more dangerous. Like crack, for instance. There's no reason in the world why crack would exist in a free market system where drugs are legal. It's entirely a product of the drug war. It's also very dangerous and very addictive. It's extremely potent. It's very small. It's easy to smuggle, but it kills a lot of people. Whereas marijuana is much safer. I'm not advocating anyone to use it. I don't myself. But if you're going to use drugs, it's better to use marijuana than to use crack. Another statistic from that, which I got the wrong one. Anyway, half of the people that use heroin in the survey held down jobs, and it wasn't nearly the disaster that everyone might lead you to believe. Oh yeah, we also have the thing on the death rate. Do you have that in what people die from? Yeah, this is in the Netherlands as well. And these stats were taken from the Philadelphia Inquirer, March 21st, 1993. 18,000 people die from cigarettes, 2,000 people die from alcohol, and 50 people died to other drugs. So clearly the most dangerous drugs in society are alcohol and tobacco. Those are legal. I know you hear this argument all the time, and it's kind of tired. But here's the reason why we support this. We don't support legalizing drugs because crime will go down or because other drugs are legal now, so why shouldn't all of them? We agree with that, but the real reason we think this should be legal is that doing drugs in itself isn't a crime. There's no victim other than yourself directly. If you take some marijuana in the privacy of your own home and nothing happens, as this happens most of the time, then fine. If you get high on crack and then go out and run into a school bus full of children and push them off a bridge, you should be indicted for manslaughter or whatever the appropriate penalty is. But that happens today now. We'd like to see something done with alcohol where you should be free to use alcohol if you want to, but they should have DUI penalties and things like that if you do something stupid or negligent with it. It should be enforced upon you. So that's where we stand on that. Now guns. How can guns possibly be related to this? Well, it's the same thing. If you listen to the people that are advocating further control on guns, they're saying the same thing that the anti-drug people say. They're saying, well, society would be better off if these things were not available to most people. There's a certain segment of the population that can't handle guns, and dangerous things happen, and people get killed, and society at large would be very much better off if these things were not available. And you always hear socialists and authoritarians, people that like big government, people who are not like us, saying society at large would be better off. That's not what this country was founded on. It was founded on the individual liberties of pursuit of happiness, things like that, not on society at large. It's very hard to define what society at large wants. Usually it's a select small group of people that decide what society at large want, and it usually coincides with exactly what they want. So we advocate looking at what the individual needs or wants, what his rights are. The individual should have the right to own a gun. Owning a gun doesn't hurt anybody in itself. It's not a crime. No, it's not a violent crime, definitely. To go out and restrict the use of guns just because some people get hurt with them is, well, it's the wrong way to go for the solution. Here's another way that they're related. Well, there are two other ways. First one is, one of the reasons that crime is so bad in this country is that criminals go free with relatively light sentences. We all know that. One of the main reasons you don't hear about that is that Congress has enacted mandatory drug laws, which send people who commit basically victimless crimes to jail for mandatory sentences of several years at a time. Every time that happens, somebody who committed a victimless crime is given a bed, and a person who committed a violent crime is put out of jail. So you get all these people who go to jail for like a third of their sentence in order to make way, after raping somebody or doing something horrible, making way for some college student who smoked pot. And it just seems to me to be really silly. It's not a lack of prison space in this country. We have more people in prison than any other country in the world. So it's not like we're not willing to build the prisons. It's a matter of fact that we're just putting the wrong people in jail. Another way that they're related is that government and its effort to control the drug trade, which is really impossible to do effectively, just like any black market, like the Soviets tried to do in Russia, like everywhere else, they try and have a government crack down on a certain market. It just doesn't work. You create a lot of crime, and in order to do that, the government has advocated gun control in order to fight the war on drugs. If the drug dealers don't have access to the guns, then it'll be easier for them to arrest them and beat them up and take their property. That may be true in a sense, but of course, in the same way that they can't keep the drugs away from the drug dealers, they're not going to be able to keep the guns away either. And so it just means that law-abiding citizens, such as myself and other people, wouldn't be able to get access to guns. So they're very related. And I know Montana is not a very big drug-using state, and I like that. I don't encourage everyone to go out and use drugs. But it's a very big gun-toting state, which is good too. But I think Montanans need to be aware that even though drug usage may not be as big a problem here as it is in New York, it's definitely an issue that impacts us, especially as people in Washington decide what's best for us here in Montana and enact all these laws like the Brady Bill or the drug seizure law, property seizure law, which affect us. And they're to solve problems in big cities that are anywhere nearby here. Oh, but there is one good thing today. The Supreme Court struck down the law that enables U.S. law enforcers to go in and seize property without a trial. So now at least they have to have a hearing. So that's good. There's some good news. So anyway, we're going to go away for now for a word from the 1984 presidential candidate, David Bergland. He's going to tell us a little bit about Montana and the Libertarian movement there. So take it away, Dave.
Well, my experience with the folks in Montana, and I've been there several times, is that they have that basic libertarian streak of independence, and that the Libertarian Party as a political organization in America today, with its growth rate and what it has to offer the American people, is exactly what most Montanans should be looking for. I believe in Montana, just as in the rest of the country, the general voter or the general person who is just out there trying to make a living and make things happen for the better in his own community with his own family is fed up with the Democrats and the Republicans and would like to have a vehicle which will work for his or her liberty at all times and all the issues. That's what the Libertarian Party is.
Caught me off guard. Okay, we have a special guest in our studio today. His name is Robert Freeman. We can get a shot of Robert there? There he is. There's Robert Freeman. He's a good friend of mine. He's also a member of the Libertarian Party, just like you would be if you call that 800 number and get some info and send it in. But anyway, Robert recently joined our party, and so we thought we'd talk to Robert about, what was his thinking process that he went through before he joined, and why he wanted to join, and why he wanted to get involved, and why he's accepted the ideals of freedom and prosperity that we support. So, Robert, how's it going?
All right, how are you doing?
Pretty good. All right, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I'm originally from South Milwaukee. It's in Wisconsin. Family of 7, so
Big family.
you can tell that was pretty huge. My father was a police officer, and what brought me into the Libertarian Party, actually, which is a big part of myself,
Right.
is the fact that seeing my father put people in jail and those people being back on the street again a couple of weeks later, and these serious repeat offenders of crimes being put back on the street over again because the jail system was so full of people who've committed petty crimes.
Right.
People who don't really need to be there. So I think that's what's brought me into the Libertarian Party, and about myself too.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's one of the big things that we talk about. We talk about freedom a lot, but the other flip side of that is accountability. People should be able to do whatever they want as long as they're accountable for their actions.
That's right.
And I know that's something that very much appeals to Robert. Right now, we have like the opposite system in this country. We have people that go out and don't hurt anybody, and they're locked away. And then the people who do hurt people, beat them up, kill them, rape them, or whatever, are not held accountable for their crime. It kind of creates we don't talk about family values or morality as much as the Republicans, but it does kind of create a moral vacuum, I think, in the country.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, so I don't know. Did you feel weird joining a third party or maybe a group that wasn't a Democrat or Republican? What was the thought process there?
Well, I couldn't find satisfaction with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party.
Well, let's go through them. Why not the Democratic Party?
Well, the Democratic Party, for the poorer people in the United States, for the minorities in the United States, you can see in every election where the Democratic Party leader, as the president's tried to has separated himself almost,
Why do you
moved
think that
himself
is?
away, people farther and farther away from these people, because they know that these are going to be the people that are going to vote in for the Democratic Party
Yeah,
anyway.
no matter what. There's
You know.
nowhere for them to go. As they say.
Right, so it didn't matter at all. The Republican side has just never been my cup of tea.
Right.
I've never been able to find satisfaction there once again. So the Libertarian Party, I think, always, you have a third party there that's always going to be, it's going to offset the other two parties. It gives people a chance to vote better. And when I say better, I mean that it's going to be tougher competition between the candidates, because they're going to have to be better. They're going to have better credentials, and they're going to have better thoughts in mind for the people.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that's beginning to happen more and more in this country is the three-party race is becoming very much not uncommon. And there's a magazine for people that are professional campaigners. I forgot what it's called, Campaigns and Elections, I think. They did an article on this recently on how the two-party race is pretty much becoming something of the past, and that third-party candidates are beginning to get into the double digits. Like right now in the Libertarian Party, if you run a race and you don't get double digits, it's not even considered like any big whoop at all. They only get excited when you get up into the 20s, 30s, 40s. And so we're beginning to win major races. In November we won a race in Birmingham, and we're on the city council seat.
Right.
That's a big city. That's very important. And it was a nonpartisan race, but the guy ran as a Libertarian. Everyone knew he's a state chair in Alabama. And what was interesting is the Democrat got second place in the primary and went to the runoff. Well, the Republican guy joined forces with the Democrat. Even though some people say that we're very much more like the Republicans, it's not really true at all. They joined forces and spent all their campaign time defaming the Libertarian Party, and it didn't work. The guy, Jimmy Blake, he got 56% of the vote. So
Right.
It's exciting. Yeah, I know. It's a party of all types, and I know, as you're saying before, I think some of the minorities in this country have been very much disserviced by the Democratic Party because they feel like they've got them in their pocket.
That's
and
right.
There's no place for them to go. And
We're gonna
Right.
vote Democratic anyway.
you can see Bill Clinton did that. And
Exactly.
see, that brings up another thing. Sorry. I know this is your interview, but I have to say one more thing. The Democrat and Republican parties don't stand for anything. I think everybody's kind of aware of that, but it's really a problem. And see, if the Democrats stood for socialism no matter what, then you know when you vote for a Democrat what you're getting. And then you say the Republicans would be anti-socialist. They're not really, but if they took that kind of stance most of the time, then you at least have some idea of what you're getting. Well, let me give you a good example. Bill Clinton has recently started talking about an idea of licensing all people who own guns. Okay, an idea which I find kind of scary. Where did this idea come from? From a Democrat? No. It came from Rudolph Giuliani, the Republican mayor-elect of New York City. It's a Republican. I mean, he's standing for increased gun control. I mean, where does that come from? It just makes me go crazy because, there's an article in this Liberty Today magazine that you'll get if you send for it by Ron Paul, who's a former Republican congressman and who resigned and joined the Libertarian Party. And he's saying the Republican Party claims to be the party of freedom, but I mean, if you look at their record, it's just absolutely not the case, and they really don't have any credibility with that. So we'll see, we've got a lot more time. Well, other things in, what do you want to do as a Libertarian Party activist? I know you're getting involved. I know he's considering running for state legislature. He's one of the other people, and I myself am as well. Hopefully we'll have a good crop of people. And it looks like we might have a candidate for clerk of the Supreme Court for our statewide office, but what would you like to see happen with the Libertarian Party in Montana?
Well, the first thing I'd like to see happen is education. You know, people, they hear Libertarian and they say, what is that? Now, for the last couple of this last month since I became a Libertarian, I know it seems like, well, that's not a whole lot of time,
Right.
you know. But when you get into something deep, I think that anybody, before they join any organization, should study about it beforehand. Now, I studied beforehand, so the month has just been an extreme learning experience for me, because you learn as you tell people about what you're doing.
Right.
And I've been telling people about the Libertarian Party, which has been a blast, because I talk to people and they say, what is that? And so I started going into it, and what it comes down to is that you should be able to do what you want to do.
Right.
You know? Now, if it's not hurting somebody else, okay, you should be able to do what you want to do. Now, most people, okay, are not out to hurt anyone else.
Exactly.
And they're certainly not out to hurt themselves. So just telling people what's going on and showing people what everything is about, the education process, that's what I want to see happen over the next couple of months and years down the line, is to get the people educated first.
Right.
First. And then, I think by just the sheer pulse of liberalism in the first place is going to, rather of libertarianism in the first place, is going to pull people in anyway, because people have common sense. They know what's going on, and
Right.
people are tired.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what you're talking about with education. That's like the title of the show, Fear of a Libertarian Planet, which there's another reason there's a spoof. There's a record called Fear of a Black Planet. But with the fear aspect, you know, the biggest thing we have to overcome is just, well, the fact that most everybody in the state seems to have heard of us by now. At least it's been my experience. But it's still a third party.
That's
which
right.
scares people.
People get confused.
Right. You know, there was a poll I saw where almost a majority of the people in the United States think that the Democratic and Republican parties are like in the Constitution. That's
Right.
like what they're supposed to be.
Right.
It's not the way at all. The Republican Party was originally a third party. The laws in this country are really slanted against third parties. In Montana, they're bad, but they're not nearly as bad as some places like Florida. It's almost impossible to get on the ballot. And so the Libertarian Party tends to expend like half their energy on every presidential campaign getting on the ballot in all 50 states. And we don't have a lot of money to begin with, so you see why you don't hear so much from us as you should. But a lot of that is fear. The legislators
Right.
in some of these states are just afraid to let anybody that has a different or new point of view come in. And also because we tend to like not be pro, you know, long-term incumbent legislators. We like term limits. We like you know, serving for little or no pay. We like things like that, low perks, a big heavy turnover, a citizen legislature, things that scare most legislators. So and like these four guys that are in the New Hampshire House, there are 400 members in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, so they're 1%, but they've like managed to shut a lot of bills down just by being willing to talk about issues in a way that most politicians won't. Bringing up, you know, the rights, or when the Republicans try and raise taxes, they'll call them on it and say, you know, you're supposed to be the anti-tax party. And when the Democrats try and infringe on personal rights, they say, you know, you're supposed to be the party that believes in this. And so, you know, they've been able to accomplish a lot, and a little libertarian can go a long way in a
Right.
state legislature.
That's what a lot of it is about, is holding people accountable.
Right.
You know, that's another thing that I want to see happen over the next following months and years, is people being held accountable. You know, and I think the Libertarian Party, we do a very good job of that. I want to see more of that.
That's our big push. I don't know, are there any other issues that are important to you?
Oh, there's plenty of issues that are important to me. We'd be here all night long if we went into that.
Okay, we got a few minutes left. Why don't I could wrap it up a little bit. I know we've got a few more minutes left. Can we get that 800 number up again, Mike? There's 800 number again for you to call. I know it sounds like a hotline or like I'm selling something. I'm not. I really want you folks to call. Even if you don't agree with us, you can call and just get the information. You might agree with us. You know, it's a little different. And what this will do is you'll get this packet of info from us. It has this stuff and a little brochure and other things. And it'll tell you about the party. So that way, even if you don't plan to join or you don't plan to get really active, at least when election time comes around, you'll have some idea where we stand. Because you know,
Right.
sometimes there are you don't have time to learn about the parties as well as the candidates. It's hard enough just to learn about the candidates who are running, but it's good to know when you see Libertarian or New Party or Socialist Workers Party or some of those other little parties, what they stand for, so that you can have some idea about the candidate. So that's very good. Just if you're going to be a Montana voter, we're going to be in the elections a lot more in the next few years, and so you should be prepared for that. So it's a good reason to call. Another thing, just in closing, I know people are saying, well, this Libertarian Party has been around for a while and they haven't done anything yet. But actually, in this last election, which is an off-year election, there are not that many races. We were the only third party in the country that I know of, from the records I've gotten, that won any elections at all, and we won 10, which is a lot.
Right.
And we did fairly well here in Missoula. We ran 3 people for city council, and we didn't really have any idea what we were doing. We never run for political office before. We had almost no money, and we managed to run very respectable campaigns. Whereas next year, we're organized, we have money, and we have some idea of what we're doing, so look out. We're going to take heads, I think. Hopefully get some of those people that are calling for fees on constitutional rights and other things out of the legislature, and so they won't be so cranky when the people ask them to recall a bill or a law which was badly passed in the first place. But anyway, I guess we're kind of wrapping it up here. Robert, thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you, Wyatt.
You're going to see more of this guy in the future, I know, and hopefully you'll see a lot more of us. And we'll keep this up, interviewing Libertarian Party members, so you can get an idea of what we're like. We're a very young group. We need more people of all ages, especially we need some more established people in the community who can help us to get roots, because we're all somewhat transient students right now. But there's lots of stuff to do. If you just want to be involved a little bit, or you want to be involved a lot, there's a lot you can do. So give us a call, and we'd love to hear from you. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
What can we do about it? Well, you're taking a step today by being here, and you've got to become educated on the issue. You've got to know that the history of this country is filled with references of use of marijuana by our heroes and leaders and our founders of our country. People don't know that the presidents used marijuana and grew marijuana, that hemp is marijuana, that Lincoln smoked marijuana, well, we know that Clinton smoked marijuana. But he didn't inhale. He inhaled, but he forgot. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to get active. You got to stand up for your rights before they're all gone. You got to become educated, and you got to talk to people. You got to be registered to vote, and you'll hear more on that, because when you're on a jury, you have the right to nullify an unjust law, such as the marijuana possession law. You've got to vote. You got to be able to be registered to vote not only for jury service, but so you can be involved in the political process. Ask your candidate where he stands on the re-legalization of marijuana. And if he doesn't in favor re-legalization of marijuana, then don't vote for him. Vote for alternative candidates, such as libertarians. You can join the Libertarian Party, because we're the only party that stands for the right to choose whether to use marijuana, who stands up for the hundreds of thousands and millions of people that are medically suffering from glaucoma or AIDS or cancer chemotherapy that would benefit from the use of medical marijuana, and the millions more that just want to be able to use it because they know it's not as hard on them or as bad for them as alcohol or tobacco. 100,000 to 200,000 people die every year from alcohol in this country. 400,000 die from using cigarettes, and 0 folks die from using marijuana. How can they justify this continued prohibition? You can also join NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's been around, ironically, the same period of time as the Libertarian Party, about 1970, 1971. We've had success over the 20 years in getting it decriminalized in 13 or 14 states. We've got medical marijuana on the books in 33 out of the 50 states. We have it on the books. It's just hard to get the government to let you get the marijuana. We've got to take action, folks, because if we don't take action now and protect our rights will be gone. This is a very important issue for all of us. Whether you use marijuana or not, you're affected under these forfeiture laws, these ridiculous no-brain laws that say you lose your driver's license for 6 months, your plates and registration, for smoking a joint in the park and you get caught, but you can get your license back to drive if you drive triple .3 drunk. Now, that's ridiculous. And there's lots of examples of horrible laws that have been passed around the country. Indiana is replete with them. But, and I could give you stories individually later about that, because I've been a criminal defense lawyer for 18 years and I've done thousands of marijuana cases. But I tell you, folks, now's the time to take action. Be proud of yourselves that you're here. support re-legalization of marijuana, and enjoy this day. Thank you.
Two, one. All right, welcome back. This segment we have our special guest who's on the phone with us right now. It's Dr. Jimmy Blake, who is the chairman of the Alabama Libertarian Party. As well, he was just recently elected to city councilman of Birmingham City Council, which is the largest city in Alabama. It was by far the biggest election we won in just the past election last month. So he's live on the phone with us now. Welcome, Dr. Blake.
Wayne, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. Glad to have the opportunity to be on with y'all.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot. He's calling us from a party in Alabama. He's very nice to agree to talk to us tonight. Well, tell me, what was it like, your big election? It seemed to have been, I was reading about it in the LP News, it seemed to be very successful. What are your impressions now that you've won?
Well, you asked me first about the election. It was about twice as much work and about 3 times as expensive as I thought it ought to be, but we decided that when we got into it, we were going to do whatever it took to do the best job so that we didn't look back and say, well, if we'd only done this. So we did all of that and more and won. Now, what is my impression since I won? I think probably I'd have to go into some of the details about the Birmingham area and what goes on here, but being on the city council is a bit frustrating sometimes in that we've got a fairly unanimous group on the city council that are beholden to the mayor, which is 6 out of 9 council members, and so there's not a whole lot of debate from anybody else on some of the issues. There have been a lot of issues that were 8-1, if you would, since I've been there, and primarily, I just tried to open the process up and make it a little bit more public, and we've been fairly successful doing that.
Do you find that as a libertarian, you don't quite fit into the political spectrum that the Democrats and Republicans, well, I guess it's not a partisan
No, it's a nonpartisan position here, although I would say that everybody else is a Democrat.
Well, it sounds like Georgia. That sounds a lot like Georgia, I guess, most of the southern states. Everybody's a Democrat.
No, I'd say in Alabama's changed a good deal. I mean, there's certainly a number of Republicans, and I would say that Jefferson County and certainly Shelby County right below us are strong Republican, but the city itself is not. It's primarily Democratic. As far as fitting in, I ask questions about issues, and sometimes things have been sort of voted through without any discussion, and it causes quite a stir just to ask questions about items on the budget and that kind of stuff. But the press I've gotten has been phenomenally good, and the media has been very supportive because they believe, as I do, that public policy ought to be public. And we really haven't had any major policy disagreements except on 1 or 2 items. Most of it has been a procedural issue in terms of whether or not, the issues related to public spending and spending for consultants and lawyers and that kind of thing ought to be something that's done in the public eye or behind closed doors.
Well, let's go back to the election for a second. I read that, you won the primary, but you didn't get over 50%, so you had to go into another runoff election. And everybody else sounds like they all teamed up against you because you were known as a libertarian. What was that like?
Well, it was the way it was going to be. It was about what we expected. Basically, the people who were well connected with City Hall were strongly against us. And in the initial election, a lot of the neighborhood leaders, our city's divided into 93 neighborhoods, were supporting one candidate. But then in the runoff, most of them, who were just regular folks, basically, came over and supported our side. We had strong backing from local Republicans, including an ex-mayor of the city, and we had an ex-lieutenant governor who was supporting us, who was a Democrat, and we had the chairman of the New Alliance Party supporting us, and all of them were primarily interested in, or a number of them were either good friends or very interested in opening up the political process a little bit. So there was a very broad coalition of support that we had to win the election, and that's what it really took. We worked very hard. We had about 20% black voters in our district, and we worked that district very hard. And despite the fact that the black mayor was his staff was on the other side, we all around. It was fairly nasty in terms of, claiming that I would, legalize prostitution and do away with zoning and destroy the neighborhoods and that sort of thing. But we were able to get over most of those claims, and we won with about 56% of the vote.
That's great. Yeah, I know. I ran for city council myself last month, and I know some of the same issues come up. What were the issues that you ran on that you thought were really important for the people of Birmingham to hear?
Well, clearly we had done a poll, or I had done a poll to determine whether or not I was even going to get in the race, because I was looking to run against a 20-year incumbent. And a couple of days after I had an organizational meeting or party, he bailed out. He didn't run, and so then it was wide open, and 5 people jumped in. The major issues we were well positioned on. We thought that people should vote before there were any increases in the city taxes, and we knew that 87% of the people in our district were in favor of that, and I had just led 2 years before a protest against the sales tax increase that had been fairly high profile. We had talked about term limits for elected officials, and we knew that about 80 to 85% of the people in our district agreed on that issue. We talked about crime should be the first priority of city government, and that had obviously been a neglected issue in terms of public safety spending. They spent money on building monuments and everything but public safety, and so there were a lot of people who were behind us on that. We talked about school reform in terms of school choice. I won't say that was a super positive issue, but it was one that I thought was important, and so I talked about. But those were the major issues, the issues of that I think people respond to all across the country, that of limited government to some degree, maintaining some citizen control over raising taxes. Those were issues. Term limits. We talked about the fact that government ought to be run by citizens, not by professional politicians, and I pledged that I wouldn't be in more than 8 years. At this point, I'm prepared to say I won't be in more than 4 years because I don't know if I can deal with it any more than 4 years. But it's those we were very well positioned on the issues, and I think that's probably why we were able to withstand some of the broadsides that we were being hit with by the establishment as it relates to the political establishment in Birmingham.
Well, that sounded great. I have one more question for you. This is a little LP insider stuff. What direction do you think the party should take as far as pinpointing certain elections?
What direction should the party go in?
Well, I know you're one of the people that thinks the party should.
Did we lose you?
No, you're still here. I'm still
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you there for a minute. Well, Wayne, sometimes you really can't go from what is to what ought to be in one giant step.
Right.
I think that the party needs to, and I've made this position, my thoughts on this known, I think the party needs to recognize political realities in terms of us moving toward the direction of a libertarian society and not assuming that you can jump there in one big step, because I don't believe you can. For example, school choice is not a purely libertarian issue, but it is something that moves us in the direction of the greater, the population having more control over their lives and getting rid of a monopoly school system by the government, which has failed so miserably. Privatization of public services may not be purely libertarian, but clearly it brings market forces to bear in governmental processes and tends to be much more efficient. Term limits is certainly not a purely libertarian issue, but from a practical standpoint, it does get rid of sort of the political class, weakens the political class, or as we as libertarians say, the demo Republican Party. I mean, there's very little difference between those people in power this day versus the ones that are competing from the other party to get in tomorrow. We need some things like term limits and some practical things to bring control of our lives back to the citizens, if you will.
Okay, well, just really briefly, what are you looking to do in Alabama with the Libertarian Party? State legislature races, anything in particular?
Gosh, I am so wrapped up right now in just getting through the day and day of running my family practice and doing the city council that I haven't spent as much time on the state party as I'd like for us to.
Yeah, I understand.
My thrust is that we ought to run for city council in towns of 5,000 people, little bitty things and races where we can really be competitive. This was a unique situation in that I was able to fund my campaign think it probably costs twice as much to be elected as a Libertarian. Not as a lot of Libertarians would like you to believe that, you only need to spend, half as much.
Right.
I think you have to spend a good deal of money, and I think many Libertarians aren't aware of just, what a mechanically difficult process. And the American political process is about yard signs, it's about brochures, it's about radio spots and TV spots and newspaper articles. It's not about debating higher principles all the time. It's get in the trenches, get out there and shake hands, kiss babies, and win the election.
Yeah, I found that out
That's what
myself.
it's about.
Yeah, we're learning that very rapidly here in Montana. Well, let me let you get back to your party. Thank you very much for calling us over your mobile phone.
Yeah, Wayne, stay in touch. I really appreciate the opportunity. I don't think I've ever been on the television in Montana before.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you at the convention. I know you had to stay home to campaign. I'm really glad you did and that you won.
Yeah, I missed the convention because of the campaign. But thanks again, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right, we'll probably send you a copy of the show or something like that.
Wonderful. That'd be great.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye. Okay, let's go to the next segment. Yeah, we'll go back to our discussion of the issues or whatever. So. I didn't explain the title. Hello, welcome to our third installment of Fear of a Libertarian Planet. Let me explain the title briefly. Fear of a Libertarian Planet is kind of a joke. It's a spoof on an album name called Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy. The reason we chose this name is that the Libertarian Party and libertarianism is oftentimes disparaged or not listened to, or there might be actual fear because it's new or it's something people aren't familiar with. And we run into that a lot, so we thought we'd kind of make light of it and use that as our title for our show. My name is Wyatt Vaught. I'm the chairman of the Montana Libertarian Party, and I'm also the host of Fear of a Libertarian Planet. So speaking of fear of our views and principles, you're probably wondering, what are those views and principles? Well, a libertarian is neither a liberal nor a conservative. He is somebody who takes the free market aspect of economics, which some conservatives support, and then he also adds in the love of personal freedom, which many liberals advocate. Well, some of them do. And we add those together, and we have our party. So those are the principles that we advocate. We have a quote that'll probably better explain that, if we could put that up on the screen. Okay, this is from Thomas Jefferson. It says, "A wise and frugal government, which shall restrain men from injuring one another, which shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned." Thomas Jefferson. What Thomas Jefferson is basically saying here is the government should not be in the business of taking money and bread or whatever away from people. It should be in the business of protecting them from infringements on their rights, protecting them from other citizens who might be up to no good, or from force or fraud, anything like that. That is the role of government. That's what we believe. The government should not be out in the role of punishing people for doing something that is voluntary and causes no harm to anybody. Those things should be up to the private individual. That's the libertarian perspective. So if you want more information about the Libertarian Party, we have an 800 number and an address that you can write to. We can put that up. Okay, there it is. This is the national address, the first one, the Libertarian Party in Washington, D.C. That 800 number is the best thing to use. That makes it much easier for us. You just call that up, tell them you want some info. They send you this big packet of information. Then your address comes to us, and we can contact you, or if you prefer, you can specify that you don't want to be contacted, and that's fine. But we'll send you some information about the Montana Libertarian Party and ask you if you want to be involved, or something like that. Also, if you are just interested in finding out more information, that's fine. If you're not interested in becoming involved, I would suggest those of you who are active voters, which I hope you all are, that you get this packet, because we're going to be in more and more elections in the upcoming months and years. And it's important for you to know where the Libertarian Party stands, since we are the only third recognized party in the state of Montana. So anyway, we can show you what you'll get in that packet. You will get a copy of Liberty Today, which, there we go. Liberty Today is I don't know, it comes out, they do a new one about every year or so. It's just basically a standard introduction into libertarianism. This year's featured article is on the New Hampshire House delegation from the Libertarian Party. There are 4 of them in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, and they have been doing amazing things in New Hampshire. It's a very interesting article. There are also many other articles on the Libertarians' view on other issues, and also introduces you to some of the more prominent libertarians and things like that. Also, along the same line, if you want to join the Libertarian Party, you will get a copy of the newsletter, which is called Libertarian Party News. Actually, it's more of a newspaper now, gotten quite big. It will tell you all about what's going on in the Libertarian Party right now. It's not as good for like finding out about our issues in a broad sense, but it's good for learning about what the party's up to. There are 12 issues a year. It comes out monthly, and it costs $25. You would also get a copy of Libertarianism in One Lesson, which is a great book for reading about what we stand for. So tonight is December 29th when this is airing, right at the end of the year. We thought for this show we would do a review of the year's issues. Most of these are national issues. We have a couple Montana issues to discuss as well. So we'll get right into that since we're kind of rushed for time. So let's go to the first issue, the budget. Yes, you all remember back earlier in the year when the budget was the big issue. What they were talking about was raising taxes in order to cover the national deficit that comes about every year. They were going to cut it by $500 billion over 5 years. Okay, is that going to happen? No. What happened actually? Your taxes were raised in order to fund a bunch of programs to increase the size of government, and nobody's really all that interested in cutting deficit. So we are very much opposed to raising taxes. Actually, we think they should be cut very much. And then the idea of paying, this money is not going to be put forward to the deficit. It's going to be put forward to probably the Clinton health care package. I think this is brought forward by when Tim Penny, who is a representative from Minnesota, put forward a bill that would have cut federal spending by 1%, 1 penny out of every dollar. Doesn't sound like a lot, but oh boy, did the Clinton White House have a hissy fit over that one. They said, oh, if you do that, we won't have enough money for our Clinton health care package. So that got nixed. And so the budget didn't get nearly as cut as much as Clinton had promised that it would be. So actually, it's a very bad thing. What you're getting out of this is an increased government and a bigger drain on the economy, which is bad since we don't have all that much of a booming economy as it is right now. So let's go to the next issue. Somalia, Bosnia, and Haiti. Well, these are all kind of one issue. The issue is military intervention overseas. Well, we as a party take a kind of non-interventionist stance. We very much support having a military, and I think that's a good idea, but it should be to protect the rights of citizens in the United States. Many people talk about how we can't be the global policeman. Well, they're not just saying that because they don't want to be the global policeman, but in most instances, it's pretty much impossible. Somalia has been a disaster from the beginning. Not because we didn't care enough, not because we didn't try hard enough. We have a great military. The problem is we are asking to do something which is pretty much impossible, and that is rebuild an entire nation. If you know anything about developing countries, it's very, very difficult, and asking our military to go in and do some action like that is, well, nigh impossible. Other kinds of military actions, like fight a local insurgency like we did in Vietnam, that's very bad. It looked like Haiti would have been a disaster, and Somalia. Thank goodness Clinton didn't send 25,000 troops in there like he wanted to, because that place held 30 German divisions during World War II with no problem. And the Germans were up to their necks in casualties, and our guys would have been wiped out. So thank goodness. Basically, we would like to see a strong military at home, and we would like to see a military which protects American citizens, protects our interests, but doesn't serve as a global policeman. Okay. NAFTA. NAFTA was the big issue last month. The issue was, should we have free trade in North America? Well, libertarians support free trade in the whole world. And I think NAFTA was kind of a difficult issue because we want to have free trade with Mexico. We already have it with Canada. But it also set up barriers to people who wanted to trade from outside North America to trade in. So the party did take a stance of supporting NAFTA, sort of tentatively. We would like to see it expanded to cover, hopefully the whole world, but at least more of the Americas. I know there are a lot of problems with the sovereignty issue that some people voice, and I think those are legitimate concerns. But at least on the issue of free trade, we're very much pro-free trade. Not only because it's good for the economy, but it's fair. The government shouldn't be involving itself in the daily lives of most businesses. Okay? Gun control. This is a big topic for we Montanans. Gun control, basically the issue is, should people have the right to purchase weapons to defend themselves against robbers, against criminals, or against a overly large intrusive government, which you might be able to argue we have now. I don't think so, but it's definitely moving in that direction. What did the Founding Fathers intend? These are all issues that come up. What's happening now in America is that there's a huge crime problem in some of the big cities, none of which are really in Montana. I mean, I know we have some crime here, but it's not like it is in Washington, D.C. or New York. So what they're trying to do there, these politicians have been elected, mostly Democrats, think that if they get the guns off the streets in their cities, that their crime will be better. Okay, let's assume just for a moment that they're right, but they're not. They're putting in these national bills, because their local bills have failed, that affect everybody in the whole country, including Montana, where guns aren't really as big a problem, or not, I don't think a problem at all. Most Montanans own guns or have some sort of involvement with them or have friends who do. And most gun owners everywhere, but especially in Montana, are law-abiding citizens who use them for peaceful means. The government coming in and taking away guns from people who've done nothing except for own them, which is not a violent act, should not be a criminal act, is a problem. That hasn't happened exactly yet, but there are a lot of people advocating that. The Brady bill, some people would say that that was a okay measure since all it did was check them, but I don't think the government should even go that far, especially since everyone is saying that that's the first step, which I find kind of frightening. Okay. Drug legalization. This has been a hot topic as of late, thanks to our Surgeon General, Joyce Elders. Well, I don't find that I agree with her on very much of anything, except for on this. Although I know she didn't come out very much in favor of it, she just wanted to study it. I think it definitely should be studied, and it definitely should be implemented. Drugs in this country have been a big problem, but the biggest problem associated with drugs is not the drugs themselves, it's the black market created by the drug use and the government saying that drugs can't be traded legally. What that's done is it's created a huge crime network in most of the major cities that's spreading to rural areas, including Montana. And it's also creating dangerous products. Drugs are, well, they're dangerous to use anyway, and please don't use them. But adulterated drugs, if you bought something, you could get really sick or die or go blind or something. There's no company to sue. There's no legitimate authority to go to and say, look, I've had this problem, because it's illegal anyway. That's just one minor issue. But basically, I think that's been a big problem in this country. The drug war has cost a lot of money. It's brought us nothing but chaos and ruin in the areas where it's been the strongest. And I don't think that there's going to be any big disaster, especially if the softer drugs are legalized. We covered that in the last TV show, I know, more thoroughly, so I don't want to drum on it too much, but I think definitely we should move towards at least decriminalization, if not legalization, of marijuana and hashish. Not because I want to use it or for any selfish interest, but just because of the effect that it has on society. All right, go to the next one. Taxes in Montana. This is the major issue in Montana politics the last year. As you know, or for those of you who don't know, I will tell you, there was a measure to put a sales tax here in Montana which failed miserably, 75% to 25%. Who was the people that were supporting the sales tax? The Republicans. These are the people that are supposedly anti-tax. They're not. They just want you to think that. Actually, they like taxes. They just like different taxes than Democrats. So they supported the sales tax. The Democrats fought against it. Then what happened? Well, Montanans for Better Government put the ixnay on the sales tax increase after the income tax increase after the sales tax was voted down. So who were the people that supported that? Well, the Republicans sort of tentatively supported it, and the Democrats fought bitterly against it. Now, you're asking yourself, where can I find a party that will support or they'll be against both a sales tax and an increased income tax, in effect, against raising taxes at all? That would be the Libertarian Party. The only party in the state that was against the sales tax and against an increase in income tax. As far as the special session, I think it was basically, they did cut the budget a lot, but they cut in areas that they didn't have to. They cut a lot of wealth programs for the poor and in education, which are easy to cut instead of cutting the size of government. And of course, as libertarians, we like to see welfare and education privatized as much as possible. So that's not an ideological point to make, but it looked like they were kind of dumping on the poor when they should have been cutting from their own salaries, cutting from the size of bureaucracies in the state, which is much harder for them to do, I guess. So in a sense, I'm very disappointed in what they did, although I'm happy they managed to cut the budget enough so that our state can go on. And I think we have one more issue. Healthcare. Okay, the Libertarian Party nationally is very much gearing up for this, very much opposed to the Clinton plan. We do, however, have an alternative plan, which I'll show you. Okay, this is the Libertarian Party's health care proposal, our briefing paper. And if you write the Libertarian Party, I'm sure that they'll be happy to send you some information on this. Okay, what does it entail exactly? Well, we want to have a medical savings account. This would be a tax-free account like an IRA that you could use only for medical expenses. This would also make all your medical expenses tax deductible. Right now we have sort of a unequal system where people who have health care through their businesses, well, the businesses can write it off, but private individuals always can't. And also deregulate the healthcare industry. We have a doctor in the local party, and she says that she could cut her costs by like 30 to 50% if she didn't have all the government regulations to deal with. And also replace the FDA with something that's much more efficient, better, because the FDA puts this huge lag on new drugs and also more cheaper therapies, and so we have problems with the FDA as a whole. So that's where we stand on healthcare. And we're also very much against this huge increase in the size of government that it's going to cause. So if you want more information on the party, we have an 800 number for you to call. And let me tell you that our next segment is very special. I'm very excited about it. We're going to be talking with Dr. Jimmy Blake from Birmingham, Alabama. He is the state chair of the Alabama Libertarian Party, but as well, he was recently elected as city councilman in Birmingham, Alabama, which is the largest city in Alabama. That was the biggest victory out of the 10 that we had in last month's elections. We're very happy he agreed to talk to us. He's going to be talking to us from a Christmas party that he's attending at the moment. So the sound quality, he's on a mobile phone. It may not be that great, but it should be a great interview, and I hope you will stay tuned for it. Immediately following this will be a statement by Mr. Richard Buddy, who is a national libertarian activist. Okay, well, we're at the very end of the show. I think it's been a good show, and I'm very excited about it. We wanted to invite you, the viewers, to write us here at Fear of a Libertarian Planet. We'll put the address up on the screen. All right, it's the bottom address. It says Montana Libertarians. If you write the National Party, they'll have no idea what you're talking about. So write to us. The address is P.O. Box 8754, Missoula, Montana 59807. That address will be in the credits if you didn't get a chance to write that down again. Let me tell you why I want you to write me, or us. If you have any questions about the party, or you have any questions about what we're doing, about what we stand for, about, like, you want to talk about our clothes, maybe we should get a different sweater or something, that's fine, whatever you want to do. But since we're not bold enough yet to go directly live and take your calls, this is as best as we can do. Also, if you don't live in the Missoula area, this will give you a chance to call in without having to pay a lot of money, or since we can't do it live all around the state. So that would be very good if any of you can write, and if not, we'll just keep doing the show like it is. But if you have any comments, please feel free to write. And also, call that 1-800 number. Please do. I know I'm plugging it all the time, but that's what I'm supposed to do. So we're in the final minute here. It's been a great blast talking to you. I hope you all have a great Christmas, a Happy New Year. I guess Christmas is over by the time you see this, but have a Happy New Year. It's going to be the Libertarian year. Our 4 things we're going to do in Montana. We're going to raise, what is it we're going to do? We're going to raise money. We're going to raise our standards, professionalize everything. We're going to raise our membership, get a lot more member of people. And then we're going to raise heck in the political system. So we're going to run a lot of people for office. You'll be hearing a lot about us. It's going to be very exciting. Get involved, or at least vote for us, or send us money or something, or drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so I'm sending you off. See you later. And I'll